Mercy me, child, the strangest things can stir up a memory. Why? Just this morning I moseyed out to my little stoop here in Pinecone Park, and the summer air had that faint, wood-smoky smell, the kind that clings to your sweater after a church picnic. I closed my eyes, let it swirl around me, and next thing I knew I was right back in 1988, standing in the doorway of that rickety rental on Larkspur Road in South Carolina, listening to my baby girl Emily hum Twinkle, Twinkle, while clutching her ragged-ear teddy. Lord knows, I've tried for 3 decades to tuck that day into the farthest drawer of my mind, but mornings like this, well, they reach in, rattle the latch, and let all the old pictures spill out like postcards nobody asked to read. I suppose I ought to introduce myself proper before I carry on. Folks around here just call me Miss Mary Lou, but back then I was Mary Lou Harper, 20-something, blue-collar, single as a dollar bill, doing my level best to raise a bright-eyed 3-and-a-half-year-old in a world that didn't have much patience for broke young mamas. I can still hear the rotary phone clacking against the kitchen wall, the clatter of Emily's plastic tea set, the hum of the box fan in the window trying its darndest to push away the August heat. Funny how a single whiff of smoke can yank you clear across time like a fish on a line. Sigh. Oh, but listen, sweetheart, if what I'm sharing stirs something in your own heart, do an old gal a kindness and tap that little thumbs up down below. Or jot me a note in the comments so I know I'm not just talking to the cicadas, will you? Bless your heart, it won't cost you a dime, and it helps this porch-side story keep rocking along. Anyway, the good Lord handed me memories sweet as peach preserves and others sharp as broken china. And today the sharp ones are jangling louder than church bells at noon. You see, the police told me that smoky afternoon took everything I ever loved, said my Emily perished instantly. Their words, not mine. They wrapped me in a scratchy wool blanket, murmured something about electrical wiring, and shuffled me off to the hospital while the flames still licked the rafters. But here's the darndest thing. Sugar. 30 years later, 30. Can you imagine? I was folding laundry in this very trailer, daytime TV humming in the background, when a talk show host chirped, "Next, we meet a woman who survived a mysterious house fire as a toddler, but never knew her real family." The camera panned, and there it was, her face, my baby's face, only grown, with the very same comet-shaped birthmark curling under her left ear like God's own autograph. My niece buckled, basket of socks went flying, and every cell in my body started hollering, "That's my Emily." Now, before you reckon I've gone soft in the head, let me tell you, I knew that mark better than my own handwriting. I kissed it every night after bedtime prayers. Seeing it on that screen was like hearing a familiar lullaby drifting out of a stranger's window. Ever since that broadcast back in 2018, sleep has been a fussy guest and peace an even fussier one. I lie awake wondering how a mother keeps on breathing after the world snatches her child, stamps tragedy on the paperwork, and expects her to stitch herself whole. Some nights I catch myself rehearsing what I might say if Emily ever walks up my gravel drive. Do I apologize for not saving her, or do I just hold her till the sun comes up? And some mornings like this one, the smoke in the air whispers, "Tell your story, Mary Lou. There's somebody out there who needs to hear it." So, darling listener, pull your chair a little closer and mind the splinters on this old porch rail, because what I'm about to share doesn't sit polite and quiet like a Sunday pew. It's raw, tangled, and still hot to the touch, and by the time the last ember dies, you just might find yourself asking the same thorny question I've wrestled with for 37 long years. How much truth can a heart bear before it breaks wide open? Back in the late 70s law, that feels like 2 lifetimes ago, I was just plain Mary Lou Collins from up near Spartanburg, a freckle-faced girl with hand-me-down hopes and a knack for humming gospel tunes while I walked the dirt road to school. Daddy worked the cotton mill till his lungs gave out. Mama took an ironing and kept a pie cooling on the sill most every Friday, and we thought a trip to the Tasty Freeze counted as high living. Folks rose with the rooster. Supper hit the table at 5 sharp, and on steamy Saturday nights the air smelled of honeysuckle and charcoal as families dragged lawn chairs to the front yard and swapped stories till lightning bugs flickered their last. I wasn't chasing any grand adventure, truth be told. I figured I'd marry a decent fella from church, keep a tidy garden, and maybe string up Christmas lights the way Mama did. One bulb out of line and she'd climb right back on the stool, muttering, "Straight is straight, Mary Lou." But life, the rascal, had other plans. I finished high school in '77, hired on at the 5 and Dime down on Baxter Street, and spent spare evenings scribbling in a spiral notebook, little poems, grocery lists, baby names I liked, the sorts of things teenage girls tuck away like shiny pennies. It was around then I met Billy Harper at a county fair, him all sun-bleached hair and dime store cologne, winning me a plush teddy bear that smelled faintly of popcorn and axle grease. "Mercy, Mary Lou," Mama warned, a smile that quick can slip away just as quick. I paid her no mind. I was 18 and thought Starlight could hold a promise. By spring of '84, Billy had driven off chasing greener paychecks, and there I was, belly round as a pumpkin, ring finger bare, but heart stubbornly bright. I moved into that leaning clapboard house on Larkspur Road, cheap rent, tin roof that rattled like a tambourine in thunderstorms, kitchen wallpaper yellowed by fryer grease and good intentions. Nights were a symphony of cicadas, freight train whistles, and my own heartbeat drumming out lullabies to the little life inside me. On March 2nd, 1985, Lord, I remember the lilacs just about to bloom. My Emily arrived, red-faced and wailing, with a birthmark under her left ear shaped like a crooked little comet. I pressed my lips right there and whispered, "You're my whole sky, baby girl." Folks said a single mother's road was all uphill, but I carried on, bussing tables at the Sugar Shack diner, nursing on lunch breaks, rocking Emily to sleep beside the glow of a boxy Magnavox TV. And you know, sweetheart, even in those lean days the world felt wide open. Neon roller rink lights, cassette tapes spooling Journey and Dolly Parton, sticky notes on the fridge reading milk, diapers, trust in the Lord. I honestly believed kindness was the greatest currency, that if you loved hard and meant it, life would circle back with blessings stitched into its hem. Emily took her first steps chasing jaybirds across the patchy grass out back. She'd tip over giggling, look at me like I'd hung the moon, and in those moments I thought maybe I had. Every evening I'd park her high chair by the screen door so the sunset could paint her cheeks peach gold, and I'd dream about saving enough tips to buy a second-hand Buick, maybe take her to Myrtle Beach to see the ocean she kept pointing at in picture books. I was 21, elbow deep in soapy dishwater, singing "You Are My Sunshine," and feeling sure that goodness, like a boomerang, always came home. That, darling, is the girl I used to be, hopeful as spring onions after rain. Certain people kept their word, certain love could outrun any storm. Little did I know the storm was already gathering just beyond the pines, waiting for one careless spark to turn my neat, hand-stitched dreams to cinders. It was a Friday morning in late July of '88, hotter than a skillet left out on the pump house roof, when the first domino clicked, a little thing that didn't look like destiny at all, just a knock on a crooked screen door. I remember wiping viscid dough off my fingers and scooping Emily to my hip before swinging the door open, half expecting the mailman with another overdue bill. Instead, there stood a tall fellow in suit-streaked turnout pants, suspenders hanging loose, helmet tucked under one arm like a church hat. "Ma'am," he said, voice gravelly yet gentle, "name's Henry Caldwell. Volunteer fire units been canvassing houses after that blaze on Miller Road. Mind if I check your fuse box? Some of these old rentals are sparkin' something fierce." Mercy, my heartbeat did a jitterbug right then. Not because Henry was handsome, though Lord knows his eyes were the calm color of creek water, but because nobody ever came round Larkspur Road unless they were lost or collecting. Still, Mama raised me polite, so I nodded, let him step inside, and watched him crouch beneath the kitchen sink where the wiring dangled like a bird's nest of frayed hope. Emily, clutching her teddy, toddled over and plopped on the linoleum beside him. "Hi, mister," she lisped, and Henry's face softened like butter on hot cornbread. He pulled a tiny red plastic fire helmet from his pocket, promotional trinket, I reckon, and set it crooked atop her curls. She squealed, and I swear the entire room glowed brighter than the 20-watt bulb overhead. Something in my chest fluttered, a mix of gratitude and a strange, inexplicable dread, as if the air itself whispered, "Pay attention, Mary Lou. This here moment's carving permanent grooves in your story." I couldn't put words to it, but my palms went damp all the same. Henry straightened, brushed plaster dust off his knees, and said, "You got faulty aluminum wiring, ma'am. Landlord oughta swap it out. Till then, keep your kettle off that back outlet here." I thanked him, and he tipped his helmet to Emily like a knight knighting a princess. Before he left, he scribbled a number on a diner napkin and murmured, "If you smell smoke, even a hint, call me direct." I tucked the napkin behind the sugar jar, thinking it kind but unnecessary. Lord help me, I didn't yet know fate had already struck the match. All afternoon I replayed the scene, the hush in Henry's eyes when he looked at Emily, the way she'd reached for him as though he were a long-lost uncle. I told myself it was nothing but neighborly concern, yet every time the screen door rattled, my pulse hopped like a frog on a griddle. That night, after I'd rocked Emily to sleep, I sat on the porch steps, cicadas sawing their summer hymn, and opened my tattered notebook. Instead of grocery lists I wrote, "Today a stranger walked in smelling of smoke and left behind an echo I can't name." Why did my heart beat so fast? I closed the cover and pressed my hand over it as though I could keep the words from escaping into the muggy dark. Looking back, sugar, I figure that knock on the door was the hinge on which all my days swung, the instant before the before became the after. I didn't understand it then, but some part of me sensed the earth had shifted under our bare feet. And if you'd asked me why I felt a chill in the dead of July, I'd have shrugged and said, "Oh, it's nothing, just the evening breeze." Yet deep down, a mother's intuition was drumming SOS, and I'd spend the rest of my life wishing I'd listened harder to its feet. Trouble didn't kick the front door down all at once. It crept in like a draft under the sill, and before I truly noticed, my neat little life was rattling like a screen in a thunderstorm. First, the dishwasher at the sugar shack gave up the ghost, so management trimmed everybody's hours, which left my paycheck looking thin as an onion skin. Then Mr. Rawlings, my landlord with the tobacco-stained grin, came round for rent and rolled his eyes when I repeated Henry Caldwell's warning about that squirrel nest wiring. "Ain't nothin' wrong with a few sparks," he muttered, slipping my crumpled bills into his ledger, and I felt a heat of anger rise clear to my scalp, though back then a single mama didn't dare sass the man who held her roof in his palm. That night the kitchen outlet fizzed so loud Emily clapped her hands, thinking fireworks had come indoors. I jerked the plug out, heart hammering, and for a split second I tasted metal the way folks say you do right before lightning strikes. I nearly called the firehouse, but shame is a stubborn mule. Part of me worried Henry might think I was looking for excuses to see him again, so I sat in the dark instead, cradling Emily and humming Amazing Grace, while the box fan whirred its tired lullaby. The next morning, church ladies at the diner whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Poor Mary Lou, baby out of wedlock, now flirting with a fireman," and every syllable landed like a burr under my skin. I slapped burgers, smiled till my cheeks ached, and prayed nobody noticed my knees trembling. By Tuesday, the heat index topped 105. The refrigerator coughed its last cold breath, and all the milk spoiled. Emily wailed for her bottle, and I felt a flash of raw frustration so fierce it scared me senseless. What kind of mother can't even keep milk sweet? I wrapped the jug in newspaper, buried it in a trash can out back, and whispered a quick sorry to the Lord for letting anger hitch a ride in my chest. That evening, Henry's pickup rumbled down Larkspur Road. He stepped out with a toolbox, and that concrete gaze said he'd just happened to be in the neighborhood. Part of me flooded with relief. Another part bristled like a porcupine. Why was I so grateful for a stranger's attention when I'd sworn I could stand on my own 2 feet? While Emily tried on his big leather gloves, Henry tightened wall plates and scribbled notes, pausing now and then, face shadowed by something I couldn't read, grief maybe, or a memory he wasn't ready to name. "Lost my little girl 2 winters back," he admitted low, eyes fixed on the circuit panel, and the confession struck me like a bell. Grief recognizing grief, even before the fire lit our horizon. I wanted to wrap him in the same comfort I craved, but fear of gossip stapled my lips shut. When he left, Emily waved her tiny helmet after him, and I felt the universe lean dangerously off balance, as though one wrong breath could tip us into flames. That night I knelt beside my iron bed, palms sweating against the quilt, and begged the Almighty for 3 simple mercies: steady work, safe wiring, and a heart brave enough to call for help should smoke ever curl beneath the door. Yet even as I prayed, a small traitorous voice whispered that goodness might not be enough to outpace the sparks already crackling in the walls. "Darling, that's the hardest part no one tells you. Sometimes trouble blooms from soil you've tended with every ounce of love, and still you can't yank it out before the roots catch fire." August the 14th of '88 is carved into my bones like initials on an old oak, and every detail still flickers bright as a match head. Bluegrass twinging from the radio, cornbread cooling on the windowsill, the ceiling fan chopping hot air that smelled of baby powder and summer rain. Emily had dozed off early in her strawberry pink pajamas, Teddy tucked under her chin, and I was rinsing the skillet when the kitchen light blinked out once, twice. Then came that wicked pop hiss from the back outlet, followed by a ribbon of gray smoke curling up the wallpaper roses. "Lord have mercy," I whispered, but the moment I yanked the plug, the socket spat sparks like angry bees, and a hush fell, so heavy I swear I could hear my own pulse thumping in my ears. It felt as though the Almighty set the clock's second hand on pause. The porch chimes halted mid-tinkle, the radio fizzed to silence, even the cicadas outside went dumb. Then whoosh, the curtain caught, flames licking faster than a gossip's tongue. I bolted down the hall, coughing, vision stinging, heat clawing at my calves. Emily's bedroom door glowed orange around the seams, and every mother nerve in me screamed, "Go through, go through." But when I grabbed the knob, it seared my palm, sent blisters blooming instant as dandelions. Panic rammed my ribs. I wrapped my hand in a dish towel, tried again, smoke clawing deep, but the hinges shrieked and the hallway ceiling groaned like Judgment Day. Something inside me, instinct or angel, shoved me toward the yard, shouting for help so loud my throat tore raw. I stumbled barefoot onto the gravel, sparks raining from the eaves, and pounded on Mrs. Whitaker's trailer till my knuckles bled. Sirens wailed in the far distance. Mercy sounded like metal wolves that night, and in a strobing red I saw neighbors flocking, bathrobes flapping, eyes round as moons. A cruiser skidded first, then the engine, brakes screeching. Henry Caldwell leapt down, mask half fastened, and I screamed. My baby's inside. Back bedroom, left side. He grabbed my shoulders, eyes steady as pond water, then dashed through the door, swallowed in flame. I clung to the hood of the cruiser, nails scraping paint, praying, bargaining, promising God every breath I had if he'd spare just one for Emily. Minutes stretched rubber band thin, each crack of lumber sounded like bones breaking. At last 2 silhouettes emerged, Henry cradling a small, soot-blackened bundle against his chest while another fireman sprayed cover. Paramedics whisked the bundle away, blocking my path, shouting orders I couldn't untangle. Someone draped a scratchy blanket around me, though sweat already drenched my dress. I tried to chase after the gurney, but Deputy Sykes caught my elbow, voice hollow. "Man, they'll do what they can." The ambulance doors slammed, its lights streaked off into the night, and I felt the earth tilt, funneling everything bright and good down a drain too dark to fathom. At the hospital, a doctor with creased eyes delivered the words like cold nails. "We're so sorry, Miss Harper." She never regained breath. I remember staring at a vending machine humming in the corner, thinking how cruel it was that candy bars still dropped when a child's heart had stopped. They handed me forms, talked of arrangements, used phrases like remains and identification, but nothing pierced the buzzing in my skull. When I finally stumbled outside, dawn was unraveling pink across the parking lot, and I realized I had lost more than a daughter. I had lost the girl who believed kindness always circled back, the woman certain love could outrun any storm. From that moment on, every sunrise felt like borrowed light, and every exhale carried a question no doctor could mend. How does a mother keep breathing once her world has turned to ash? Grief, I learned, doesn't roar forever. After the sirens fade and casseroles spoil on the counter, it hunkers down quiet as a winter field, and every sound, clock tick, screen door creak, own heartbeat, feels hollower than the last. The week after the fire, I drifted through Emily's service like a ghost in borrowed shoes, thanking folks whose faces swam behind my tears, nodding at hymns I couldn't hum. Someone pressed her teddy into my arms, and I clutched that singed bear so tight its button I snapped off. Never did find it. Once the flowers wilted and the town turned back to payday sales and football scores, I lay on the floor of that motel room the Red Cross paid for, staring at the stippled ceiling, counting the bumpy dots over and over as if the right number might unlock some reason, some mercy. But reasons kept their backs to me, and mercy, well, she must have taken the Greyhound out of state. I tried returning to the diner, yet every clatter of dishes mimicked the crash of burning beams, and customers' chatter sounded like Emily calling Mama through smoke, so I quit, left my apron hanging crooked on the staff hook. The landlord sold what was left of the house lot for scrap. I took my final paycheck, bought an aging Buick that smelled of stale cigars, and pointed west, just to feel the miles stack up between me and Larkspur Road. Nights on the highway, I'd pull into rest stops, fold the passenger seat back, and let the cicadas' distant buzz stand in for a lullaby. Only now the song felt tinny, like a tape played too many times. In Arkansas, I spent 6 months harvesting strawberries, fingers cracked and stained, silently daring the sun to scorch a hole clean through me. In Oklahoma, I tested motel mattresses for a housekeeping company, fluffing pillows no child would ever drool on. Each dawn I woke wondering whose life I was borrowing, because it surely wasn't the Mary Lou that once balanced Emily on her hip and believed the Lord tallied every sparrow. My faith, bless it, didn't vanish so much as thin out like November light, still there, but stretched fragile, filament fine, I'd stand outside clapboard churches listening to hymns leak through stained glass, unable to cross the threshold, as though God's house had stiffened its spine and turned away from single mothers who lost the only thing worth praying for. In '93, a kindly cousin in Mobile wrote that a trailer lot in Alabama needed a caretaker. Exhaustion more than hope nudged me south, and that's how this tin roof haven became my latest mailing address. I mended screens, fed stray chickens, and learned the art of quiet living. Warm coffee at dawn, crosswords by noon, evening news murmuring of faraway heartaches that somehow hurt less than my own. Folks here know me as the lady with the box of quilts for any newborn in the park. Ironic, I suppose, when my own arms stay empty, but stitching squares calms the rattles inside me, each needle jab a tiny prayer that pain might yet sew itself into something sturdy. Years rolled on, presidents changed, phones lost their cords, but the air in my trailer held a stillness no gadget could jostle. I watched birthdays pass without candles, Christmases without a stocking on the wall, and although the ache dulled round the edges, it never learned to sleep. Some nights I'd wake to the fan's shadow spinning and swear I smelled baby shampoo drifting down the hall. I guess that's what loss does, it redraws the map, but refuses to hand you a compass, leaving you to wander familiar rooms that now echo like cathedrals. Even so, a stubborn ember inside kept glowing, faint but earnest, whispering that a story unfinished might yet turn a page. I didn't know then what form that page would take, only that the paper of my heart was still warm enough to scorch if the right spark found it. Life plodded along in measured little footfalls, feed the hens, fold the quilts, watch the azaleas wilt and bloom again, until one late April afternoon in 2018, when a breeze of pure, uninvited grace slipped through the screen door and rattled every settled thing inside me. I'd just brewed a fresh pot of chicory coffee, same as most days, and plopped onto the Saga sofa with a basket of threadbare socks to darn. The remote, bless its stubborn heart, stuck on Channel 8 where the midday talk show blabbed about miracle diets and runaway grooms. Usually I clicked it mute, but this time the batteries picked that exact moment to quit. So the studio clatter spilled into my quiet like school children bursting through chapel doors. The host chirped, up next, a remarkable young woman who survived a house fire she can't remember. Stick around. And I nearly punched the off button, because who wants that brand of heartache rerun? But something, guardian angel or plain old curiosity, kept my thumb hovering. They flashed a teaser photo, a woman in her early 30s, soft hazel eyes, auburn curls tumbling just so. I squinted, leaned closer, felt the air go thin. Then the camera cut to a live shot, and there she sat under bright studio lights, chin tilted brave, hands folded shy, when she reached up to tuck hair behind her ear, and there it was, a comet-shaped birthmark curling under the lobe. Exact as the one I kissed every night long ago. Time slammed on its brakes. I heard the coffee drip sputter its last, and then nothing but the wild gallop of my own pulse. My first thought was pure wonder. Mercy me, Emily, look at you all grown and breathing, followed a half-beat later by dread so sharp it nicked phone. What if memory's playing cruel tricks again? The host asked how she'd been rescued and adopted after records were lost in the blaze. She spoke with a careful politeness, like someone reciting a bedtime story she'd only half believed. Tears blurred the screen, yet I saw enough. The slope of her nose, that shy left-sided dimple, the way her fingers worried a silver necklace, the very same rhythm Emily once twirled her teddy's ear. Hope, dormant so long it almost forgot its own shape, shot up in my chest like a dogwood in sudden spring. I wanted to laugh, to sob, to run outside and tell every pine tree lining the lot, "She's alive, my baby's alive." But fear held my feet. What if the birthmark was coincidence? What if barging into her life reopened wounds she never knew she had? Even so, by the time the credits rolled, I was already rifling through the junk drawer for paper and pen. That night, the old Buick's dome light glowed, while I scrawled a letter to the show's producers, hands shaking, handwriting looping crooked, words tumbling out faster than sense. I am Mary Lou Harper, fire in South Carolina, 1988. My daughter Emily, comet birthmark. Please, I beg you, put me in touch. Licking the envelope, I tasted salt and sudden courage. At the mailbox, crickets sang like they'd been waiting 30 years to cue up this anthem of second chances, and for the first time since the flames stole my voice, I whispered into the dark, "Thank you, Lord, for letting hope hitch a ride back home." The world hadn't changed, paint still peeled, bills still piled, but the air around me crackled with possibility, and every rustle in the pines sounded like a footstep drawing my girl closer. Maybe grief doesn't end, but sometimes it loosens its grip just enough for wonder to slip 2 fingers through. And that night, as I crawled into bed clutching the worn-out teddy I'd never managed to throw away, I felt the faintest flutter under my ribs, a reminder that hearts, even scorched ones, can learn the rhythm of hope again. I sat out on the porch swing one lavender dusk evening, letter from the TV producers folded soft as a hymn book between my fingers, and for the first time in 30 long years, I let the hush settle without fighting it. Cicadas droned. The trailer park lights flicked on one by one, and I felt the Lord tap gentle at my heart, asking, "Mary Lou, are you finally ready to lay all this down?" I'd carried guilt like a sack of wet clay, blaming myself for every crack in that old wiring, for Emily's teddy left on the bed instead of in my arms, for the scream that wasn't loud enough to turn back time, and that sock had bent my spine, bruised my joy, blistered my prayers. But staring at the producer's promise of a DNA test and a meeting if results align, I understood something plain as daylight. The ache was real, but so was the chance to breathe different air. "Lord knows," I whispered, "I can't rewrite the fire, yet I could choose whether the embers kept scorching every tomorrow." So I rose slow, knees popping like kettle corn, fetched the cedared chest from under my bed, and lifted its creaky lid. Inside lay the scorched teddy, a melted hair barrette, the char-smudged page of Emily's picture book, relics I'd guarded like contraband against the present. My hands trembled, but instead of slamming the lid, I reached for needle and thread, found a spare black button, and stitched that teddy anew while tears plopped fat onto its cinched fur. Each pull of the thread felt like drawing splinters from my soul, and when the knot cinched tight, I heard myself exhale a decades-old breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Next I penned a note, neat as I could manage. "My dearest girl, whether you recognize me or not, this bear was once your bedtime friend. He's waited, like me, with love unspent." I tucked the bear into a little shoebox lined with quilt scraps, tied it up in yellow ribbon, and mercy me, something inside clicked into place, like a door unjamming after the storm. Then I did a thing I never thought I would. I lit a single beeswax candle on the porch rail, held that barrette in the flame till the plastic curled, and let the night breeze carry away the thin ribbon of smoke. It wasn't a funeral, it was a graduation, letting the past walk across the stage and take its seat so the present could speak. I wiped my cheeks, squared my shoulders, and spoke aloud to nobody and everybody. I choose to live forward. No more bargaining with yesterday, no more sharpening grief like a knife. If Emily's mine, I'll love her out loud. If she's not, I'll love her in silent gratitude that some other mother's arms were strong. Either way, I am not broken glass. I am stained glass. Cracked, yes, but pieced together by grace. The words drifted toward the pines, and I swear the night insects paused to listen. Inside, I took the dusty mirror off the wall, cleaned it till my own reflection stared back brave and clear, then whispered an apology to that young Mary Lou who'd once believed kindness guaranteed happy endings. Sweet girl, I told her, kindness was never wasted. It just planted seeds in soil you couldn't see. When I crawled into bed, I didn't clutch the shoebox. I set it by the door, ready for travel, and laid my palms open on the quilt like pages eager for fresh ink. Sleep came gentle, unhurried, and somewhere between dreams I realized the furnace of sorrow had smelted a stronger kind of hope, one that didn't depend on outcomes, only on the choice to keep the porch light burning. In that quiet, I finally forgave myself, forgave the night, even forgave the fate that rewrote my motherhood, and I drifted off tasting salt. Yes, but also honey, proof that both could live on the same tongue when a heart decides, simply, to go on. Funny thing about hindsight, sugar, it's like quilting scraps under lamplight. The longer you study the pieces, the clearer the pattern shows itself, and what looked like random tatters starts humming a tune of purpose. Back when the fire stole my center of gravity, I was convinced time moved in one direction, straight away from joy, so I treaded water in sorrow's deep end, afraid to swim anywhere new. But years rolled on, and I see now that life is more a weather vane than a railroad track, swiveling with each gust of grace or grief, pointing us toward lessons we never even penciled on the map. I used to think heartache made me less trusting, less whole, less worthy of wide-open mornings, but losing Emily, then finding a fragile bridge back to her, revealed a quieter truth. Broken doesn't mean barren. You can plant tulip bulbs in scorched earth and, given patience and a bit of spring rain, watching those stubborn petals pry through blackened soil will teach you reverence no easy season ever could. I realized, too, there's a sneaky kind of pride in clinging to pain, like polishing a tarnished metal that proves how fiercely we once loved. Yet eventually that shine turns to rust and our hands blister from the polishing. The day I stitched Emily's teddy a new button, I felt the burden shift from monument to memory and mercy. What a difference that makes. A monument keeps you rooted to one spot, saluting the same sorrow. A memory travels light, slipping into your pocket and warming you on cold walks, but never chaining you to the past. So here's the wisdom I've patched together from cinched pages, roadside motels, and porch swing midnights. Grief is not a debt you're obliged to carry forever to prove the love was real. Love proves itself each dawn you dare to breathe kindly toward the world again. And forgiveness, especially the self-kind, isn't a white flag of defeat. It's a key that fits the locked door between who you were and who you can still become. Maybe you're listening with your own box of unspoken regrets tucked beneath the bed, waiting for the perfect apology, the perfect sign, the perfect tomorrow to set you free. Darling, perfection is a bus that never stops. Sometimes you gotta hitchhike with imperfection just to reach the next town of possibility. So open the window tonight, let whatever breeze shows up ruffle the curtains of your heart, and ask yourself, is the story you're telling on repeat still serving you, or is it time to hum a new refrain? The past is a teacher, sure as Sunday school, but class lets out eventually and recess is where the sunshine's waiting. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to quit counting the days since the lightning struck and start counting the ways light still slips through the cracks. Because whether your comet-shaped ache is 30 years wide or 30 minutes fresh, the door to hope only needs a sliver of willingness to swing open, and the handle sits on your side. So go on now, sweetheart, set down that heavy box for a spell, pour yourself something sweet, and consider this old woman's nudge. Perhaps today is the day stop waiting for permission to live forward. Well now, sweetheart, if you've rocked beside me this long, feeling the porch boards creak and the night critters hum their sleepy hymn, I reckon our hearts have wandered a fair stretch together. And before we set our cups down and ease back indoors, I'd like to leave a small ember glowing in your palm. Some evenings, when the cicadas hush and the moon slings a silver swing through the pines, Emily's sedan noses up the gravel. Her little ones spill out like fireflies, and she walks that last few steps slow, studying my face the way a traveler studies a half-forgotten landmark. We never say much about the years the fire stole. There are distances words can't cross, but she always slips her arm through mine, and we stand a minute, listening to the wind sift the needles exactly as it did the night the flames took everything we knew. Turns out love doesn't need perfect records or tidy explanations, it only needs room to breathe again. When she drives away, taillights blinking red like distant cardinals, the yard goes still, yet I no longer feel hollow. Instead, there's a soft fullness, the kind a quill earns after covering many winters. I've learned that a broken story isn't the same as a finished one, and that endings rarely stay parked at the back of the book. Most times they circle round, knock on your screen door, and ask if the kettle's on. Folks tell me they're waiting for the perfect sign before stepping out of their sorrow, and I smile, dip my head, and answer as plain as porch light. Signs are shy creatures. They appear the moment we inch the door open, not a heartbeat sooner. So let me ask you, dear listener who's kept me company on this dusty veranda, what door have you held shut for fear the hinges might squeal? Do you believe, as I do now, that real love, like a good hound, will nose out a path home no matter how twisted the woods? Or have you decided some roads bend too far to be walked twice? I'd truly cherish reading your thoughts down below. Your words might be the lamp another wanderer leans toward. As for me, I've made peace with the knots in the timeline. Some I untied, others I left as testimony that a tangle can still be beautiful. And hush, every time those headlights crest the lane my heart still skips, proof that even scorched wood remembers the song of rain. I've come to understand the past isn't a chain, child, it's a root. Yes, it anchors you, but new branches will reach for sunlight if you let them. So whichever dusk finds you after the story ends, keep a porch light burning, not only for the folks who might return but for the parts of yourself you feared were lost in the smoke. And if you catch a whiff of wood smoke on a summer breeze and feel your pulse quicken, don't be afraid. Maybe that's just the universe clearing its throat, reminding you there's still a chapter left to write. Now, before this kettle whistles itself dry, tell me, do you reckon love always finds its way back, or is there a door in your life that needs your own hand on the latch tonight? Leave me a note down yonder, and if this old tale rang true, tap that little heart so I know you are sitting right here beside me. Until our paths cross again, may grace trail you like honeysuckle scent on a warm Carolina wind. I'll keep the porch light burning.